Howdy y'all, so I am Joe Hughes, currently Senior Solutions Architect at Pure Storage, focused on all things flash stack. I was a long-time Veeam customer. My last Veeam shop was actually 14 VBR servers. So I was kind of a pain for doing all of the scripting and automation, and that's what Veeam brought me on board to do for about 2.5 years, before I jumped over to Pure about a year ago. So long-time Veeam and Pure customer, which is why I'm seriously passionate about all of this stuff. So what we're going to talk about is the current integration that we've actually got inside of the environment and some of the new stuff that's coming with USAPI 2.0. As you know from Veeam data protection, we can recover anything, anywhere, at any time. You can leverage this as a single platform of everything that you have on all cloud and virtual and physical platforms. Protect, restore, and migrate workloads across any of these clouds, and now all of your containerized workloads as well. This is the Veeam goodness. Everybody knows this. As we start talking about Pure, primarily we're going to be talking about two different models of the flash arrays, right? We have our latency optimized and capacity optimized, right? X series, C series. Basically, typically production storage arrays, and then tier 2 or capacity for backup targets on this. It's really all about you need to know for Pure. Simple, virtually limitless snapshots is what we're leveraging for all of this, right? Instantly snapshot any volume. Since these have zero performance overhead, and essentially these are all metadata pointers, right? They're full volumes that have full capabilities. You can mount, read, write, snapshot them again, no dependencies from one to the other, and you always have full performance across all of these. Every time you snapshot a volume, it's going to take you about 2 seconds to see a new copy of this, right? And you're not going to be having another full clone of this data that lives on your storage array. You're not using all of this capacity. It's just pointers to everything. Amazing for recovery anywhere. That's what we're going to leverage for this integration. So, Veeam backup from storage snapshot, if you don't know how this works, essentially, we have the array integrated with Veeam, so Veeam is aware of our capabilities. It tells the array to take a snapshot. Veeam waits for that snapshot to be done, and then it takes a backup, right? Pretty simple. We also have the capabilities with the new integration with USAPI 2.0 that we can actually have application-aware snapshots. So array snapshots that have your application awareness. Rather than being crash consistent, they're app consistent. It's amazing for recovery on this stuff. I literally wish I had this when I was a customer. It's cool to still play it with it in the lab, but you know, not as cool as if I was actually using it for my production environments. But leveraging storage snapshots for a better RPO, again, it consumes essentially no space on the storage array. There's no performance overhead. They are essentially instantaneous for all intents and purposes. So you can deal with having backups in your traditional backup window and then have snapshots, honestly, every 5 minutes if you really wanted to. And use all of these pointers to have quicker recovery to point in time on the storage array where you're not taking a performance hit, you're not rehydrating all of your data. So typically we have customers that are using a flash array C as their backup target, right? Our capacity optimized array, always on data reduction, always on encryption. Typically we're going to see 2-to-1 to 5-to-1. As a customer, you know, I've seen many of them running like 4-to-1. But obviously we have a range for depending on what's on there and if you're running some tier 2 workloads as well as your backups. And then one of the things that you also have is the capabilities for efficient snapshot tiering, right? You can keep snapshots on your production array, right? You can keep these here on-prem when you need quick restores, and if you want to have these storage snapshots that are not consuming space, that even now have app awareness, you can replicate these to a secondary array, so you can still have storage level snapshots rather than just Veeam backups that live somewhere else. And so you can do tiering, right? You have snapshots you can recover from on your production array, as well as having snapshots that live on your secondary array, to where you can easily promote these, or you can use those snapshots of your secondary array as dev test environments, right? Granular recovery, obviously from any of these snapshots, you still get all the good Veeam capabilities, right? You can recover a full VM, guest files, any of your application level items, and we'll actually see this in the demo video that I've got. So for modern data protection, right, we want to focus on using snapshots because these are fast, they're efficient. There's a lot of space savings with having snapshots that consume essentially no disk space rather than having full hydrated backup copies of your data, obviously, and they are much, much quicker to recover from. By doing this and having this running on top of your high-performance block storage, it's just massive deduplication on the array side, massive deduplication on the Veeam side. You get benefits from both platforms, so there's no reason not to be leveraging your traditional backups with your array snapshots in between. So with the USAPI, right, Universal Storage API plugin version 1.0, you essentially had snapshot orchestration and backup from storage snapshots. That was it. Really what we're trying to get to is this here, right? Instead of having stun on a standard VM backup where you would see the snapshot and you would take a long window for a backup and then a deletion of a snapshot that could potentially stun your VMs, you take a storage snapshot at the front, so the VM snapshot lifetime is measured in milliseconds. So that stun time for the VM is milliseconds rather than your entire hour that it takes to back up that VM, right? And then we release the storage snapshot. We take the backup from the storage snapshot, delete the storage snap on the back end. It doesn't affect your performance, right? You're not taking all of that time where you have Delta files living against all of your VMs for this. With the new Storage API 2.0, we also get replication integration. So you can leverage our built-in array-to-array replication. With Pure, it's a feature, right? It's always on, it's always there. If you have two arrays, you have array replication as a capability. There's no additional jumpers, there's no features, there's no licensing upgrade for it. Everything that exists in the Purity operating system for a flash array is available to all customers. But we now also have the granular snapshot restores, right? So application-aware snapshots that live on these storage arrays, and you even have the capability now that you can actually target this and take the backups from the replicated snapshot on a secondary array. So even your primary array with those snapshots is not even the target that's used for taking your backups. We do it off a replicated copy. So we're going to end up going probably a little bit over time because I think I was a little ambitious with the video that we've got here to try and run through this. But here inside of the Veeam interface, we see our storage infrastructure. To go add a new array, currently we have an X70R2 and an X70R3. The R3 is our production. R2 is essentially our target environment for the backup. We go click, we're going to go add a storage array. We give it an IP address or DNS name. We tell it it's either a target for Windows block or vSphere block and file. In here, we go look at our volume. We can see the snapshots that live on the volume. We can see the VMs that are within the snapshots. And if I can pause this in the right spot, you can actually see as we can now restore all of our application items off of an array level snapshot. If we go look on the Pure side to go configure this, it's pretty easy. We go into protection, we create a protection group. This is targeting source array, target array, and which volumes are inside of this protection group. That's all you have to do on the storage interface to just say, this is where I want you to send my data. All the rest of the orchestration is in the Veeam interface. So all the things you know and love about Veeam, you can handle it there instead of having your storage team dealing with the replication that drives your backups. So in here, we created a protection group. We're adding volumes inside of it. Wow, that's a terrible video. We're telling it essentially go target from my X70R3 to my X70R2. This is where I want you to send this thing. That's it, we're done. We flip back over to Veeam. The first job that we're gonna run here, we're gonna create a new backup from backup with snapshot replication here. So lots of fun typing, which I love having to do in demos. But what we're going to do with this is we're going to go through, we're going to pick our virtual machine that lives on that same volume that we just put into that protection group. So we're going to scroll down, find our SQL server in here. Once we have this in the backup job and we've targeted this, we're going to flip over to the next screen for storage. And basically you have the option of either putting it in a traditional backup repository or saying that this is going to be a snapshot only job and say that the backup repo is actually just a pure snapshot. We set this retention policy, which is going to be how long we actually keep the snapshots on the storage array. And then we click the box that says configure secondary destinations for the job. That gives us this new option here for secondary target. So when we click next, it gives us destination jobs where we can add array replication, synchronous replication, or array offload, where you can actually take that snapshot and offload it to a cloud target or S3. So this is a selection for how many restore points we want to maintain. So this is going to be on our target array. So we're going to leave 1 in production, 4 on the replicated target. So now you can see that for the secondary target, we have this array replication. Guest processing is where we can enable everything for application-aware processing that lives within that storage array snapshot. We're just going to kick the button for go run this now because we want to see what happens. Next, we're going to go create another backup job. This is going to be a snapshot-only job. So this is only going to deal with managing the orchestration of snapshots on a production array to a secondary target. So we'll create this with the replicas, go through the same steps, right? Pick our virtual machines to put into the backup. So we're going to pick that same SQL server because identifying this SQL server that lives on the volume, that was the replication target we had on the storage side, right? That was all the configuration we had to do at the storage level. This time, for the storage backup repository, we're going to pick the option of a pure storage snapshot, right? So a primary snapshot only on our production array. The retention policy is the number of snapshots we want to actually keep on that array. So we're going to set this to 1. We're going to configure secondary destinations, which says how many snapshots do I want my second storage array. So again, replication or offload. Are you keeping this on an array, or are you dumping this off to cloud or to S3? We want to keep it on an array, so we're picking flash array replication. We're going to go with the same 1 and 4. All right, so now that we see we've got storage snapshots as our secondary target, we have the retention policy, again, storage, primary, secondary target, your replicated copies. All right, so 1 and 4. Again, we have the capabilities for application-aware processing, so you have app-consistent snapshots rather than just crash-consistent backups. We're going to finish scheduling this job and kick this off, and then we're going to start going to look in the details. All right, so the backup with our snapshot replication is already running. The snapshot-only job just got created, and it's now running. So we can look and we can see the first thing that we do is we take a snapshot at the storage level. All VMs prepared for storage snapshot. The snapshot transfer succeeded. That means we took a snapshot at the array level. We replicated that first. Now we're creating a second storage snapshot for the backup, right? So we handle array replication, then we take another snap for that backup. If anybody sees the nice little warning symbol here, this is just because the plugin is unsigned, because this is running V12 beta code and a beta version of the snap-in. All of this is going to be signed. The little warnings will go away. But this shows us our backup proxy is retrieving hard disk data from a storage snapshot on our X70R3 array. Right, so we're leveraging the storage snapshot for the backups. So now we have all this done. Once the backup is done, we unexport the storage snapshot, we make it unavailable, then we delete it. And if we actually go in on the Pure Storage array side, you'll even see this inside of your deleted volumes. So even if you wanted to actually go recover that storage snapshot, by default, it's going to live on that Pure Storage array for another 24 hours. So now that the first run of the backup, the first full backup of the snap replica is here, we can go into our backups. We can see that we have that individual VM. We have all of our restore options that are there. If we look at the volumes here for that demo SQL volume, you'll see that the volume snapshot that we have here is essentially just .14, right? That's the thing to remember. So we have snapshot number 14 here on our production storage array, this X70R3. If we go look at the secondary target on the X70R2, we will see that that volume snapshot is replicated, right? Storage snapshots only, separate from your backups, right? That destroyed volume snapshot that we have was the backup snap that we took and then deleted, but if for some reason you needed to bring that back, by default, that's even still on your array for 24 hours, right? So now on our X70R2, we have this replicated .14 snapshot that's over there, right? As long as you look at the numbers, you can see we're not doing anything funny here. So now we finished the backup with snapshots. We're kicking it off again just to see it run with an incremental so that we can actually see that a snapshot .15 is going to end up on our primary array and on our secondary array. So the backup's running. We're running an incremental. On our production array, we now have only .15, right, for the replication, and then we have the current backup snap. That's the one being used for our storage for our Veeam backup separate from the array snapshot, right? So in production, we're going to have a single snapshot, which is going to be .15. But then as we look at our secondary array, we'll see that we have .15 and we have back for 4 storage snapshots, which was the retention we wanted to have here, right? 15, 14, 13, 12. So now if we go back into our Veeam interface, we can take a look and we can see that we did actually run through everything here. We had change block tracking enabled, so it was a successful incremental backup that was done here. We can now see we have 2 restore points that show inside of the Veeam interface for backups. We can now even go in to look at our snapshots, that it's aware of the snaps that we have inside of Pure because of the integration. So we can see there's 13 restore points living as snapshots on that volume in the Pure Storage array, even though there's only 2 backups that were handled by Veeam. But all of these are capabilities that you have to draw from for restores. This snapshot only with replica, as we kick off this job, we're essentially just going to see that all we're doing is orchestrating separate snapshots on the storage arrays that are going to be replicated with no backup running. But this is for quicker, more efficient backups that we can run in between, restores if we need to in between our full backups that we're running. So now we have this Veeam prod snapshot only with replication that's there, and we still have our original demo SQL 15 snapshots. And as these process, we'll see that it completes on the production storage array, and then we'll get replicated over to secondary as well, right? Here's our Veeam prod snapshot only job. And this ended up taking about 11 seconds here. So not bad. And again, the only reason the warnings are here for the job completion as well is because of that unsigned plugin. So again, it's a lab, it's beta code, it'll be there for production. So now the biggest thing that we're going to do is we're going to go edit our original backup job, and we're going to modify this to actually be a backup from our secondary target. By taking our initial backup job with a snapshot replica and just editing the secondary destination, we can click this box here that says use as data source. This means I'm going to take the snapshot that's on my secondary array that it's already replicated to, and that's going to be my data source for my backup. So even though we have very space efficient, very high performance storage arrays, we still want to use the capabilities that we have there of that array to array replication to use the snapshot on the secondary array to be the target, the source data that we're using for our backups. So there is essentially at this point like zero performance hit to your production storage array. So we're kicking this off again, basically running through this job just to show all the traditional steps again, right? VMs are prepared for storage snapshot. We're starting the transfer. Once the transfer for the replication is done, we wait for all the components on the Veeam side to be available. After the snapshot's been replicated across, we're going to flip over and essentially say we want to make sure that we see this snapshot, right? Production array has .16. The secondary array is going to also get this .16 snapshot. So it's now on our secondary array. And when we flip back over and look at the Veeam interface, we can actually see this time within the job, once it updates. When we look at the VM for where it's being processed, the source data for this is going to be our secondary array target, right? So we're handling snapshot replication through Veeam, we're handling the backup through Veeam, but we're able to have the awareness of what the capabilities of the storage array are to make sure that the source data is even our secondary target, so we have as minimal possible impacts to our production environment for doing all of this. And all of this essentially comes in with the same features and capabilities that you have with any of your traditional Veeam backups, right? So application level restore points from a storage snapshot or from a backup. This is just here highlighting that we are backing it up from our X70R2 array, which was our replication. And in the first job run that we had, we pulled it up from our X70R3. So we have the capabilities of backing up from primary storage, from secondary storage, doing snapshot-only orchestrations, all sorts of fantastic, fun stuff that we have inside of here. Let me see if I can, ooh, man. Oh, fun. So I can't get past the video now. There we go. Yeah, this doesn't work great on the touchscreen. Hold on. Trying to get back to the slides past the video. Yeah. No, it shows for half a second. No, that's still just the. Hey, there we go. All right. Okay, so back to all the Veeam goodness. If you have Veeam or if you are considering Veeam, I highly encourage you to understand all the capabilities and all the features that are there within Veeam. Again, as a longtime customer, Veeam saved my bacon so many times throughout my career. And Anders even loved when I dropped this little nugget during the last booth presentation, leverage the capabilities of Veeam to test on production, but not in production. Spin up copies of your production data. You can test your upgrades, you can test your patching, you can test whatever new automation scripts you're gonna do. You can learn infrastructure as code, all of this stuff by taking your production environment and spinning out another copy. Especially if you have this sitting on Pure Storage, you also have fantastic performance for doing all of this. So make sure that you are doing this stuff. Make sure that you understand how to consume on-demand sandboxes so you can actually give your developers, you can give anybody in your business units or any departments that actually need copies of production data, full VMs that actually have this data as a clone of what's in production to test against, not old backups. Also be aware that you have Secure Restore as a capability. If you are bringing back old data into your environment, especially potentially any server or any data, or even just ancient copies of stuff that you were told could be decommissioned because eventually somebody will come back months after the fact and say, I need this. You have no idea if this thing is up to date with current patches, if it's up to date with current antivirus protection, right? Bring it up in a secure fashion so that you can test or clean this data before you bring it back onto your network. If anybody wants any more information, you can come find Pure Storage over in booth 1201. If anybody wants to actually see how Veeam and FlashArray play together, we actually have a virtual test lab environment anybody can get access to go see this and actually get a hands-on lab module where you can walk through all of these things for yourself. And if anybody really wants to understand kind of how we design a full reference architecture around all of this, we have a Cisco validated design for FlashStack data protection with Veeam. If anybody has any questions, feel free to find me or look for Tim Smith that's somewhere around here, because I always love sending people to harass him. And that's it.